Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of the Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show, now coming your way on Tuesdays and Fridays for the rest of the season. We know this town is football crazy, Zach. We have our baseball diehards, but it's football crazy. And so, especially coming off that opening day game, it seemed a little crazy to do a Monday show. Plus, you got your flight delayed into Chicago. So we decided to move to Tuesday, and we'll probably do that the rest of the year. Before we get into anything else, and before we hit the intro, you have an official, a Zach Meisel counted White Sox attendance last night?
I was trying. I will say this.
Yeah.
The announced attendance was 11,429.
Yeah.
I would argue that's at least double what it actually was.
Yeah.
And let's say there were 4,000 people there last night.
Right.
I legitimately think 40% were Cleveland fans.
Yeah.
Tickets
must be cheap as dirt right now.
Well, and it's not just that, but they apparently, I spent a lot of the night talking to White Sox fans, those poor people. And several of them said that they were actually encouraged to buy the cheaper tickets because the ushers at the ballpark were going to move people down to the lower concourse or the lower bowl anyway.
Cool. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it was funny. I'm looking for White Sox fans, and there were certain points where it was like, man, that's just all Cleveland fans here. I can't even find White Sox fans. So, or either that, or they just didn't want to show their true colors because they were embarrassed.
I don't know. All right, we'll get to that. We'll get to the Guardians win. We'll get to whether or not Joey Cantillo would have been allowed to go for the perfect game had he completed the seventh inning. And I think he was at low 90 pitches, before it got broken up. We'll look back at the Dodgers weekend and look ahead to the team coming home and one more final road trip ahead in the final 20 days of the season. So much to get to here on the Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show. We are back. Zach, the magic number is down to 8. I believe, right? I have it as 8. I think it's 9, but technically it's 8 because they have the tiebreakers against all the teams.
You're saying just for a playoff spot?
For a playoff spot, yes. For a playoff spot, it's 8. They basically, they would have to lose almost every game the rest of the season to not make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's weird how it's shaping up because it seemed like it was the 6 were set, like unless Boston could sneak in and overtake Kansas City. But now, after Kansas City swept the Twins lost against the Angels last night. Now they're hanging on for dear life in that 6th spot. So, and the weird thing is you've got Boston 3 games behind Minnesota. Detroit is now 3 games behind Minnesota and Seattle. So it's that, like, the Twins. Can we cross them off yet in the division, you think?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think they're done in the division.
Even with 4 games in Cleveland next week?
Well, you're fair. You're right. I mean, if Minnesota would have to sweep the series, which seems unlikely, but, a lot of unlikely things have happened in this baseball season. So that's, yes, that if they sweep, even if the Twins won 3 of 4, I think they're done.
Yeah, I think so too.
But if they sweep, then I'd still give them a shot in the division. But obviously, the Guardians lost 2 out of 3 to the Dodgers. We said on Friday, hey, just don't get swept, which they didn't. But there were some bad things out of that weekend, which we'll get to. But we were talking like who you're rooting for in the Royals Twins. Well, it went all Royals, as you said, for the sweep, and the Twins are reeling right now. If you had to bet today, without maybe knowing the schedule of the rest of the teams, you have, as you mentioned, 3 teams that are 3 games back. I'm not sure what the tiebreaker is. I'm pretty sure the Twins have the tiebreaker over the Tigers, but I don't know if they have it against the Red Sox and Mariners. But all 3 of those teams are 3 out. Let's see, they have 130, 144. All 4 of those teams have 14 games to go. 3 games is obviously not unsurmountable, but it's a decent amount with only 14 games.
I think it's 18 games.
Oh, sorry, 18 games to go. Yes. What do you think?
I think the Twins hang on. It's easy to just on them at their lowest, but
Right.
they got to beat the Angels. The Angels are really bad. So, I don't. It's weird because we were talking for so long. It felt like we knew the 6 playoff
Right.
teams,
Right.
and that any of this we said any of the 6 can make it out. Well, if it's like the Tigers or the Mariners who grab that 6, or even the Red Sox,
Yeah.
I don't think that's the team you want to play.
Yes.
If you can. So I think the Twins looked a lot more formidable a couple of weeks ago, and now it is to the point where like the Guardians could, send them packing essentially next week if
They could.
yeah. So
Without a doubt.
yeah, I think it's probably safe to say that the Twins would need, especially if the Guardians beat the White Sox the next 2 nights. Like the Twins are pretty much cooked in the division because it's not just the 6 games; it's also the Guardians already have the tiebreaker.
Right. That's true. So it's more.
Yeah. But the Royals are certainly still in play here. I think going back to the weekend, I think we agreed probably the best. Like you'd want the Royals to maybe take 2 of 3, or if they swept the Twins, then you want the Royals to go to New York and get swept by the Yankees.
Right.
Although the Guardians are also then fighting with the Yankees
Yes.
for the top seed, so it's kind of a mess. I think you want to just sew up the division when you can.
Yeah. And it's funny because there is like a little bit of me that says, well, okay, you got to sweep here, obviously, if you're the Guardians, because and we were talking about this on UCSS yesterday, and Jason said it, and he's right. Like usually you never can say, oh, you should sweep a series in baseball, but the White Sox are the worst team in the history of the sport. I mean, you have to sweep. There's no excuse.
Look, if Joey Cantillo can go 20 up, 20 down against you, you probably should be swept.
Yeah, exactly. So if you sweep, there's part of me that says maybe the Yankees take 2 out of 3. I can, even though, because the Guardians are a game back of the Yankees. I believe the Yankees have the tiebreaker, correct?
Yes.
So the Guardians have to finish a game ahead of the Yankees to have home field. And if it does come down to Yankees Guardians, I think that home field in that matchup in particular, more than any other, makes a huge difference.
Now, of course, the Yankees are still neck and neck with the Orioles. So
that's right.
That could change. There's also the part of me that wonders, and like we can talk about this, fans can talk about this. The players can't waste any energy on this, or the team can't. But I kind of wonder if you'd rather have the 2 seed than the 1 seed, except that understanding that you don't really want to go to Yankee Stadium. But let's say the Orioles had the 1 seed, just in terms of who you'd have to play, because if you are the 1 seed, you're going to get the 4-5 matchup. And again, like anything could happen. Maybe the 5 seed wins, but there's like a decent chance that that's the tougher matchup. No? Would you rather face the Astros or the Yankees /Orioles /Royals in the division series?
I mean, the Astros are playing the best baseball of all of them.
They've cooled off a little bit, but but like Verlander's been terrible.
Yeah, that's true. I don't like their starting pitching. They're guys who have pitched the best for them are guys who have never really pitched in the playoffs. Like Hunter Brown's pitched great the second half. Outside of his last start, Spencer Arrighetti's pitched well in the second half. Ronel Blanco. Valdez has not been as good this year. And as you said, Verlander's been terrible. I think the toughest matchup ultimately for the Guardians is the Yankees.
I agree. There's not a great matchup period. I just wonder, like, the path you're taking. I don't know. You don't want to have to go through both New York and Baltimore, I think.
Right. So if you're the 1, then right. So the Yankees and Baltimore are probably going to be either 1 or 2 and then 4.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So, and even that could change, because how far is Kansas City behind Baltimore for the first wild card?
I think like 3 games.
Yeah. So even that could change. But let's assume that the American League East second place team finishes 4. Right. If you're the 2 seed, then you won't play Baltimore or the Yankees. And in a perfect world, if you're the 2, the Astros lose to Kansas City, because you'd rather play Kansas City than Houston, I think, even though
I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right. Because and the last thing,
these aren't the same Astros that you've all
that's
become
true. You're right.
accustomed to.
You're right. But Kansas City doesn't have any playoff experience.
Yeah. Their starting pitching's really good, though.
It is. I'm trying to think. Reagan's I don't think has ever pitched in the playoffs. I'm pretty sure Seth Lugo, even if he did, would have been as a reliever.
Singer definitely hasn't. But I don't know. If I'm the Guardians, I'm trying to stay away from any team that's got a couple of starting pitchers who throw changeups.
Yeah.
That's their kryptonite, has been since the dawn of time. And again, like all of this is immaterial because they can only control what they can control. You probably want the 1 seed, so you have home field advantage. And like you're gonna have to beat tough teams regardless. And we're talking like we have power over this, but
right.
The standings are so close, such a jumbled mess that who knows how it shakes out. You can't control it.
By the way, Seth Lugo did pitch in the playoffs out of the bullpen, as I said, in 2022 in the wild card round for the Mets against the Padres. And he actually got a save. He pitched 2 innings, gave up no runs, 3 strikeouts, and a save. So he has some experience in the postseason.
Would you have Joey Cantillo in your playoff rotation?
Well, that's I certainly would not. But he listen, as bad as the White Sox are, I still give him credit. I mean, he pitched great last night. He and I tweeted, and I tweeted this after 5 innings, which is kind of silly, but he was already at 67 pitches after 5 innings. And I tweeted the fact that I was pissed last week when the Cubs pulled Shota Imanaga with a no-hitter after 7. He had thrown 90-something pitches, and they didn't let him pitch the 8th because if he was no-hit through 8 and he's at 105, they don't, then they're in even a worse position. And the Cubs had a combined no-hitter, but to me, combined no-hitter has no value. It shouldn't count in the record books. It shouldn't be a no-hitter. It should, or put it in a separate category. The fact that they put them all together to me is stupid. One of the great things of what makes the no-hitter or the perfect game most impressive is that one guy worked through these batters 3 times, or in a no-hitter's case, probably 4 times, and had to deal with it tiring and all that. Bringing in 2 relievers the last 2 innings is meaningless.
That's actually that would be an interesting story. Just like talking to the guy who pitched the 6th inning of a no-hitter. Like, did you get a baseball that you have on your mantle? Like, is it?
Well, I after the Cubs did it last week, I don't even remember. They had used 2. They were up huge. So
it barely makes news anymore if that happens. Yeah.
But a perfect game would have made news. But like in my mind, there was no way they were going to let him do it. Now maybe I'm wrong, but like when he lost the no-hitter in the 7th inning, was there 1 out or 2? I can't remember now.
2 outs.
2 outs.
Right. So yeah, he went 20
he was
up.
At what?
20
91, 92 pitches at the time. So like, were they going to let him pitch the 8th? Do you think?
So,
and I would have lost my mind. And that's a perfect game, not even a no-hitter.
Right. So his season high for pitches in an outing was 89.
Yeah.
And he had a bunch of outings between like 85 and 88. And he's a guy with some injury history. And certainly this is a year of development for him. And at the major league level, I mean, it's been ugly. 4 spot starts. And in those 4 spot starts, an ERA of 8.47. So a lot of, we've seen it 3 innings, 4 runs, tons of laboring and high pitch counts for the amount of innings he's thrown. So that's all in the back of your mind. And as the 7th inning is going on, Stephen Vogt and Carl Willis had not said a word to each other the entire game. And Vogt said he was starting to get nervous, and he was actually relieved when Benintendi got the hit. Because
isn't that sad though?
Yeah, it's tough because if you had a crystal ball and you could say he'll need 110.
Yeah.
Then you let him go. But it's when you're like, he knows what's on the line. It's the 9th inning, maybe. He's nibbling because he wants to be perfect and try to keep it, and he's getting to full counts on guys. And all of a sudden it's like, well, if we let him go 110, can we let him go 112? Can we let him go 115?
Yes.
Can we let him go? And it's different for everybody. I think I see both sides of it. Like as a fan of the sport and sitting there, I'm also thinking, this is the pitching factory. Cleveland is year after year, they churn out incredible starting pitching. And we've seen Corey Kluber and Shane Bieber and CC Sabathia and Cliff Lee and Carlos Carrasco and all these great pitchers have come and gone, and nobody has thrown a no-hitter or a perfect game since Len Barker 43 years ago, and it's going to be Joey Cantillo in front of like 30 people at Guaranteed Rate Field.
Well,
So that's
know,
I was having like conflicting feelings. Like, does it make it a better story because it's so improbable? Is it a worse story because the opponent is historically bad? Is all of that fun to write and read about? Are they even going to let him go? I was dreading what you were hoping wasn't going to happen. I think the worst scenario would have been this kid goes 7 innings. And then you go to Cade Smith and Emmanuel Clase, who certainly would have shut the door. And then it's like, this is kind of underwhelming.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. The Guardians franchise is the longest drought without a no-hitter, no-hitter / perfect game. And Barker was so long ago. Obviously, there's a lot of fans that never saw Len Barker's perfect game.
But everyone says they were there.
Yeah, right. I remember I played in a charity softball game with him a number of years ago. Actually 2 years in a row. I was at the Lake Erie Crusher Stadium. He was super nice. And I remember him telling me he felt like crap that day. Which maybe he says that now. Who the hell knows? But he says he felt like crap that day. But yeah, it would be funny. I was looking at when I was last night before the 7th inning. I went to look at who pitched the last no hitter for every team, and there were some random dudes. I mean, I believe. I want to say for the Cardinals, it was Bud Smith. I could be wrong.
I remember that. Yeah.
Remember what's his name? I mean, it didn't happen, but I can't think of his name now. But the guy who should have had the perfect game for the Tigers,
Armando Galarraga,
right? And he was basically out of baseball a year later.
Yeah, well, so the guy for the White Sox who threw a perfect game, Philip Humber.
Oh yeah,
remember him?
And he was a prospect at one point. And then he barely pitched in the majors. I think Joe Cowley, I want to say, pitched 2 no-hitters for the White Sox.
Have you ever seen a no-hitter in person?
I did, believe it or not. It was against my team. I was at Wrigley Field. I want to say it was 20. It might have, I can't remember. It was somewhere around the world. It's when they had the good Cub team. I can't remember now what year it is. It was 15. It could have been 16. I don't think so. Might have been 17, somewhere around there. And Cole Hamels was pitching for the Phillies, and he no-hit the Cubs. And it was weird because I was like annoyed, but it was also cool seeing history. And the last batter of the game, Chris Bryant hit a bomb to left field that on if you had neutral wind at Wrigley, it would have been a home run. If you had wind blowing out at Wrigley that day, it would have been probably hit the building across the street. But it was one of those days where the wind was blowing in, and it batted it back down, and whoever was playing left field, I don't remember, caught it like against the ivy to end the game.
Okay, so that was July 25th, 2015, and I had to look it up because it reminded me that
that's funny.
After the game, the Cubs official Twitter account had, I think, one of the best tweets of all time. Their tweet it showed like the line score, and so you only see that it's 5-0. They cut it off after that, so you can't see the number of hits. And their tweet reads, "Dexter Fowler walks twice in loss to Phillies."
I didn't know that. That's hilarious.
Burying the lead a little bit.
Okay, that's funny.
I think the only one I've ever seen in person was Irvin Santana of the Angels at Progressive Field. On like a getaway day Wednesday afternoon. When the Indians were they stunk. Like,
well, they've been no-hit a few times in recent years.
Oh, wait, yeah. What am I talking about? I saw 4 of them in 2021. But the first one that I ever saw. And Irvin Santana...
got numb to it after that
he gave up a run early in the game. On like a walk and an error. And so like, no one in the press box realized he had a no-hitter going until the very end. Because we just, so much chaos happened. And those stink. Like, you see no-hitters sometimes with like Jose Jimenez for the Rockies. I think threw one once where he had like 8 walks, and that's just So anyway, what Cantillo was doing last night was sharp, efficient. Of course, it's against the White Sox have scored 104 fewer runs than any other team. It still counts, but barely.
Yeah, I mean they are pathetic. By the way, I know it's little league fall ball, so it's certainly not major leagues. But we had a weird my 9-10-year-old team. We had a very weird game this weekend. It was the last game of the regular season, so we won 6-5 on a walk-off base hit by one of my kids, Tyler Mullane. I'll give him a shout out. He got a walk-off single to win it. That was our first hit of the game.
6 runs on 1 hit?
Yes, their pitcher walked like 10 batters or 11. I don't know. We had like a million. We had a million walks. So yeah, that was our only hit. We could had we won on an error or a walk, we would have had we would have won a game with no hits. The other team only had 2 hits.
That's great plate discipline.
I teach them well, Zach. I don't mess around. All right, we'll get to the fans' comments. We'll look ahead to what's coming up the rest of this week. Guardians only have 5 road games left the rest of the season. But first, folks, let me talk to you about FanDuel. Love FanDuel, man. If you're thinking about making a nice little wager or something, whatever you want to do for all your gambling needs, go with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Something a little different now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV basic plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. All right. So let's look ahead on the schedule here, Zach. Obviously, in the division, the Guardian. What is their magic number of the division? Is it 14? You know it offhand?
So the Royals can only get to 96 wins. So I think it's 15 because the Royals have the tiebreaker.
Right. That's right. Okay, 15. So the Guardians are 20 games over 500. What's their season high? 24?
25. They were 51 and 26.
Okay. What's your so they're 82 and 62, 3.5 game lead in division, 4 in the loss column, but the Royals have the tiebreaker, as you mentioned. Royals had that one bad week starting with the loss to the Guardians in that final game of the series, but they've bounced back. They're playing well again. Royals have the second best run differential in the American League at +91, only behind the Yankees. They've scored a ton of runs, 685 runs.
Which is weird because their lineup still, I know they just patched it together with a few veterans on the waiver wire, but like the strength of their team to me is the rotation. Their bullpen is still a question mark. They gave up a ton of runs late against the Yankees last night, but outside of Witt and Perez, that lineup isn't all that scary, especially with Pasquantino out.
Pasquantino being hurt now. Yeah, I mean, who else scares you there? I mean, those guys are both, we know what Witt is. He's an MVP candidate. Salvador Perez has just been, he a Hall of Famer? I think so, right?
We need a way to value catchers. I don't know enough about like defensively. And so then I'm inclined to just say I don't care about it because I don't know how to.
Right.
Like WAR is still imperfect. And
certainly, especially when it comes to defense.
Yeah, and and the defensive side of it like is getting recalibrated all the time. And so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's weird. He's never been a high on-base guy or a high batting average. But if you look at a guy like in the last like 20, 30 years, he's one of the most clutch, big-time power hitters from that position that of all time, really.
Well, the one thing is if he keeps doing this for another few years, then he's going to make it a lot more difficult to say no. He's 34, so it seems like it's asking a lot, but he isn't really slowing down. I mean, his OPS is still over 800. He's going to have 30 home runs. So I don't know. He's impressive.
He let's see. He's won, for what it's worth, he's won 5 Gold Gloves in his career. All between
and that's what I mean is like that doesn't reflect what the metrics say about his defense.
Right, exactly.
So I don't know what I'm supposed to believe.
Let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 All-Star games. Only 3 years where he's gotten MVP votes. He did finish 7th in 2021 when he led the league with 48 homers and 121 ribbies. I mean, he's gonna hit over 30 this year probably. He's gonna get over 100 ribbies. 272 career homers, 910 career ribbies.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think he falls short now.
Yeah.
Like his overall offense, like his OPS plus, so basically his offense compared to his peers is 6% better than league average over the course of his career.
Yeah.
I don't know, 3 more seasons with like 20 plus home runs, and then maybe we'll talk.
If you look at the Jaws, comparisons for Hall of Fame, he does fall short. 7-year peak WAR, average catcher 35. He's at 25. If you look at his similar batters through age 33, there's one Hall of Famer, Gabby Hartnett, who was a catcher for the Cubs. There's a lot of very good players on that list, like Lance Parrish, Brian McCann, Javi Lopez, Troy Tulowitzki, all really good players, but not Hall of Famers. So, yeah, he probably is short. He probably is short. All right. But getting back to the Guardians, so 3.5 game lead, 20 games over 500. You look at the schedule; they continue this road trip in Chicago, where you are now. And when do you put? I know you mentioned briefly that you've been talking to White Sox fans and you're writing a column. Is that still the proper terminology? I never know the proper terminology anymore. Now that everything's online, is it still a column?
I mean, there's no opinion in it.
Okay,
I don't know.
A column is opinion.
Typically, it doesn't have to be.
Okay. What do you call
the lines have been blurred? It's
story.
I guess a story.
All right. So when your story's coming out about the fans? Because I'm curious to read.
Either tomorrow or Thursday. I've been working through it this morning, and I got to see if I want to talk to more fans tonight or not.
Gotcha. I mean, if it was Jason Lloyd, it'd be out, in December. But
have you read his Albert Bell feature yet?
I know everybody's waiting for that. We've been waiting a year and change for that Albert Bell feature.
It was. I don't want to just like kick the White Sox while they're down. It's too easy, right?
Yeah.
It is absurd. They're going to finish with like 125 losses. It's insane. But I will say I talked to a lot of people who, I expected to like find fans with brown paper bags over their heads. I say, "Why are you here tonight?" And they say, "Because I'm a masochist or something."
Right.
And I actually got some really interesting people.
Okay, cool.
And then there were also people, like one guy was like, "Yeah, I just texted my buddy that I've been to wakes that are livelier than this." So, it's I think you could find answers all over the map here.
Yeah. All right, so the Guardians, so 7:40 Eastern start tonight, 2:10 tomorrow afternoon. And then after that, the Guardians play 13 of their final 16 at home. They have an 8-game homestand, Tampa and Minnesota, 2 4-game series. You don't usually see that, 2 4-game series back to back. And then you go to St. Louis for 3. And then the final week, they have a day off, 2 games at home against Cincy, another day off, and 3 games at home against Houston. So they have those 2 days off in case there's a rain out or something.
And you want to make sure that you are at least 3.5, 4 games ahead of Houston at that point.
Absolutely.
Because you don't want the first round bye to be at risk.
Right. And they're not playing. And here's the thing. They got to sweep the White Sox because there's no excuse for not. But also, they're not playing any terrible teams after that. Like Tampa Bay and Cincinnati and St. Louis, they're not very good, but they're competitive. I mean, they're not the Rockies. They're not the Marlins. And they're not the White Sox. Those teams are not just going to lay down. I mean, they're going to play.
Those are teams that the April, May, June Guardians would beat.
Right.
Confidently and look like the better team. Those are teams that the July, August Guardians
could go either way.
Yeah, I don't know.
So obviously the Twin Series and the Astro Series, will be very competitive, but we'll see. Going back to this weekend, very discouraging outing from Gavin Williams. I mean, to not even get through the first inning. And, we're talking about the rotation last week. And twice, he's had 2 starts since he's been back. We were like, here we go. Those are great starts. And he's followed both of them up with terrible starts.
Yeah. And I don't even know what to make of him. Because that's so, we talk about who would be in your playoff rotation. And
Yeah.
it's, do you take the guy who has the huge boomer bust potential, or do you take the veteran who the ceiling is lower, but maybe you're confident you can get just a solid okay start out of them? Like that's the decision you're going to have to make here. And he's got probably 3 more starts maybe to change your mind and
Yeah.
instill confidence in you that he can go 6 innings and be that dominant guy. Like that start against Kansas City was him putting the team on his back and saying, let's go
Right.
win a division, right? And then the start against the Dodgers was,
I mean,
not major league caliber.
no. Right now, Matthew Boyd's the second best pitcher on the team.
It's insane.
I mean, it's insane is an understatement. I mean, it's just, I don't even know what word to use, but I mean, he's been fantastic. So it's going to be fascinating to see what they do. I mean,
they can lean on the bullpen either way. I think that
will.
helps. It's funny. We were talking in a meeting at the Athletic yesterday about like we all thought that like Terry Francona revolutionized playoff pitching plans, the way he used Andrew Miller and setting up for Cody Allen and all that. And in reality, like there have been some teams that have done that where they'll take their best reliever and throw him in the 5th inning if they have to, and patch things together that way. But that didn't really become the norm in the playoffs. Like if you still have good starting pitching, you lean on your good starting pitching if you can. But it's just crazy how like 2016 is the team we look at. They were forced into that because of their starting pitching injuries.
Right.
And here we are in 2024, and Cleveland's they've got the exact same formula. Like it's gonna be leaning on that bullpen, getting a timely hit, and winning 3-1. And like the difference, I guess, is we've kind of known this is coming. It's Carrasco and Salazar 8 years ago got injured in September. Trevor Bauer did whatever he did during the playoffs. So I think it's just interesting how like it's got to be the same style.
Yeah.
Even though this is a team again that's been known for its starting pitching, this is a team that it's got to find ways to win games, I guess, in spite of it.
Yeah. That's true. Speaking of starting pitching, Logan Allen pitched for Columbus yesterday. Did you see his line?
A lot of action, right?
4 innings, 10 hits, 8 runs, all earned, 3 walks, 5 Ks, 3 home runs. I mean, he got boat raced.
There are going to be some decisions to be made about this rotation this winter. Maybe him not so much just because he's pre-arb, whatever. But McKenzie, arbitration eligible.
Yeah.
Keeping Bieber, Boyd, or Cobb. Do you want Lively around again?
Yeah. I would try to bring back both Lively and Boyd. Well, Lively's still
Lively's there if you want him.
Yeah. I would try to bring Boyd back on a 1-year deal. Why not? And nothing more than that. I mean, if he, I don't, as well as he's pitched, nobody's giving him a multi-year deal. Now, maybe somebody will pay him more than they're willing to go on a 1-year deal because if he continues to pitch well. But I would try to bring him back. I mean, you mentioned yesterday. By the way, Gabriel Arias walked, stole a base, scored, and then came out of the game last night in Columbus. Do you have any idea why? Or
I haven't heard. No.
Yeah, I don't know. So just keep my eye on that.
I'd also keep your eye on
Tristan,
a reliever being called up at some point.
Okay. Well, last night was ridiculous that they had to go to Gaddis and Class A. I mean, there was that.
I just mean from the DFA'd Barlow,
right? Yeah.
Nick
which
Sandlin
was a bit of a surprise. I mean, he's not been very good, but he's not been horrible.
But I think what it tells you is obviously you have Class A, Gaddis, Smith, and Heron. Those are your 4 you trust implicitly.
Yeah.
And I think they're looking for a 5th. And I think Barlow he ran out of chances.
Yeah.
Nick Sandlin has certainly not helped himself in trying to join that circle of trust. Hentges is done.
Yeah.
So I think I don't. Eli Morgan and Pedro Avila, you want them facing Aaron
No,
Judge in October?
no.
So I just think, and I don't know if there's enough time for someone to join this mix, a rookie, like Andrew Walters, and all of a sudden be pitching the 7th inning of a playoff game. But, the DFA ghosts every other day. I do
That's
think,
crazy.
I think there's a decent chance we see some reliever we haven't really seen before the end of the season.
Yeah.
I know that's at least in consideration here. And they'll need, they're hopeful Cobb will pitch for them later in the week. He's dealing with that blister. You'll get Lively today, Boyd tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so at some point when all the starting rotation gets sorted out, there will be room for another reliever, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, definitely. And you mentioned to me, you texted Jason and I yesterday about McKenzie.
Yeah.
Piggybacking today, could it lead to him pitching out of the pen? Who knows, but we'll keep an eye on what he does today.
Yeah. I think they're just trying to figure out anything they can with him.
Let's get to some fan comments before we wrap up. We've already gone way long. We always do. Here we go. Fan comments, questions. Plasma Void is annoyed that the start time is messed up. We started right at 9. I'm sorry, Plasma. We've been pretty consistent with the 9 a.m. on Mondays and Fridays.
Be honest. We started at 9:02 because we were talking about talking about the other Cleveland sports team in action.
I
these
apologize. Days. Joel Ward, best guard show. There is no question. You guys know ball. Thank you, Joel. Sean agrees with that. Eric, do you think the guards can take the 1 seed? Yeah, sure. I mean, they're only a game back of the Yankees. Let's quickly look at the Yankees schedule.
I was going to ask, do they still play the Orioles?
I don't know, but we're going to find out here in.
They do.
You were quicker to it.
Their schedule is not very difficult.
Let's see. They got 2 more at Kansas City, a 4-game series with Boston. I know Boston's not great, but, those are always competitive. Then they go to Seattle. Seattle's played okay. Even at Oakland, I mean, yeah, you expect them to win, but Oakland's been a lot better than Baltimore, and then they end with Pittsburgh, which is pretty bad at home.
That Baltimore series will be big, though. I mean,
that'll be for the division most likely.
Right. The difference between the 1 seed and the 4,
that's huge.
Is enormous.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay. RJ, we need Trevor Bauer from the cartel in Mexico. Hectic Portugal. Hey, Zach, what are the chances the guards bring back Bieber in 25?
It's an interesting question. I like, my inclination is to say that there would be mutual interest in, one of those 2-year deals that you see guys coming back from Tommy John sign, where year 1 is maybe a much smaller salary because they're only going to pitch for a couple months. And then year 2 is a much bigger salary because you're assuming they'll be healthy and back to their normal selves.
Right.
And that would allow him to then reestablish his value and sign a major deal after that. However, the issue here is the mutual interest being Bieber's comfortable with Cleveland, wants to rehab in he lives in Scottsdale. He can rehab in Goodyear, work with the medical staff he knows well. Like, there are benefits there to staying. The question is, a team like the Dodgers does this and rehabs pitchers every single year and is always going to be willing to take more of a financial risk. So if the Guardians are comfortable doing like 2 years, $25 million, where it's $7 million in year 1 and $18 million in year 2, I could see the Dodgers being willing to say, we'll double that.
Yeah.
So that's the tough part. How important to Bieber is just the familiarity in your surroundings and who you're dealing with. I think that's the big question.
They're certainly going to try to keep him, but we'll see how it ends up. Joel says, with how good our bullpen is, would we ever do a bullpen game in the playoffs, or is that blasphemous? Yeah, certainly. I mean, it might, like, maybe you start with, I mean, let's face it. Outside of Bieber, there's going to be no patience whatsoever for any of the other starters.
Well, yeah. So, like, let's say you have a 5-game series. Game 1, you go Bibee, he goes 6 innings, whatever. So game 2, you have Matthew Boyd.
Yeah.
didn't think I'd be saying this on September 10th.
Yeah.
Kudos to him, though. He's been fantastic. Great guy, too. Let's say you have Matthew Boyd. You know you have an off day the next day.
Yeah.
Boyd gets into trouble. It's the third inning.
Yeah.
Go get Cade Smith.
Yeah, I mean, he could pitch 2-3 innings, couldn't he?
Right. Like, go get Cade Smith, extinguish that threat. He pitches the fourth, gets out of that, pitches the fourth, maybe starts the fifth, and then Heron comes in. And, like, you can piece it together.
Yeah, Heron finishes the fifth, pitches the sixth, and then Gaddis pitches the seventh and part of the eighth, and Clase pitches the rest of the eighth and the ninth. I mean, we'll certainly see that in the playoffs. I don't think there's any doubt.
I agree.
Because they're not going to let any pitcher get into any serious trouble, especially because the offense is just not good enough to make up a big deficit.
Right. So it's going to have to, like, if they pull out a win, that's what happened in 2016. It felt like, man, how did they navigate through this? It felt like so many things had to go perfectly. That's what it's going to have to be.
Yeah, no doubt. Ryan says, after Gavin's bad start, can we trust him? Do you bump him from the rotation? I don't know. I can't.
He's a guy, too, where I think it's the same thing, where it's like, if you recognize early on he just doesn't have it, super quick hook. And then if he's going well, like, he could be a guy to give you 7 innings in a play. Like, he's not a guy where I'm like, I don't know if I want him facing the top of the order a third time. If he's on, like, that stuff can be unhittable.
I don't know where he's going to be in the rotation in the playoffs, but if he's healthy, he's 100% going to be in the rotation, even as and it's nice to say he's been inconsistent as he's been, because he has got elite stuff. He's got much better stuff than Boyd and Cobb and Lively. And so, yes, as you said, we've been able to tell with him pretty quickly. He's got it or he doesn't. And if he's got it, he could give you easy a 5-6 inning game in the playoffs. And if he doesn't, you get him the hell out of there and you get to the bullpen.
Just make sure he's pitching the day before an off day. Then if you have to lean on your bullpen for 7 innings, you can do it.
And also, whoever, let's say, whether it's Lively or let's say it's Lively who's not in the rotation. Well, he's still going to be on the roster, I would think. So you could bring him in. He's pitched out of the pen in his career. You could bring him in and maybe you get a couple of innings out of him. All right, let me get a couple more in here real quick because we're way over the time. Creative Juice, what does Clase have to do to win the Cy Young?
Probably more about Tarek Scuba at this point, like imploding for a couple starts.
Yeah,
and
especially with
not allowing another run.
Especially with the Tigers now legitimately in the wild card race.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's over unless, as you say, unless Scooble completely falls apart here. It's hard. It's unlikely. And you can't even if you're one of these old school writers that cares about wins, which I personally don't, on a mediocre Tiger team, he's still leading the league in wins. I mean, I only know it because I just looked at it now because I don't pay any attention to wins, but the guy's got 16 wins nowadays. I mean, nobody gets that many. He's leading the league with a 2.53 ERA. He's leading the league with a 208 strikeouts. He leads the league with a 1.64 ERA plus. He leads the league with a 2.54 FIP. I mean, what are you going to do? As great as Clase is, the guy's a starter, and he's got a 2.50 ERA. If I were voting, I'd vote. I've said this for a few weeks now. I'd vote Scooble 1, Clase 2.
I do think Clase could finish second.
Yeah, definitely.
And he would be the first reliever to do that to finish top 2 since Gagne won in 2003. I think Mariano finished third 3 times and fourth once maybe. So even finishing second is pretty rare.
Impressive, beyond impressive. If Mariano Rivera never won a Cy Young, it's hard to complain about Clase not winning it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just Mariano Rivera is the greatest closer of all time. It's one of the only debates in sports that there is no debate. There's no discussion. So
actually,
that's it.
I actually think Trevor Hoffman, now that I think I wrote the article a couple weeks ago. I think Trevor Hoffman finished second in 2005 or something. And his numbers were not his ERA was 2. His strikeout rate, he had 50 strikeouts.
All right. Now I got to look it up.
Yeah. Voting 20 years ago is just
was
bad.
No, it wasn't 2005.
It was either because Hoffman finished second twice.
Hold on. I'm going to look. Let me look up from him. All right. Trevor.
It was 06.
Okay. Trevor Hoffman. Let's look at 2006 when he finished second in the Cy Young. Oh, I'm looking at in 98. He finished second in the Cy Young.
Right. And his numbers were good.
Behind Tom Glavine. That year, he had a league-leading 53 saves, 86 Ks in 73 innings, a whip of 0.84, and a 1.48 ERA.
So compare those numbers to the numbers he had 8 years later when he also finished second. And you're like, the Guardians have 4 relievers with better numbers than Hoffman had in 2006.
He finished second. He had a 2.14 ERA, 46 saves to lead the league, 63 innings, 50 Ks, an 0.97 whip. Yeah, I mean, that's a hell of a season, but not Cy Young level. Yeah, that's weird. There wasn't, let's see, Chris Carpenter finished third with a 3.09 ERA.
But like, explain, Billy Wagner finished 6th, and his numbers across the board are better than Trevor Hoffman's were that season.
He had a higher whip, but but 94 strikeouts.
Right.
Almost double the strikeouts. Yeah, that is weird.
And Hoffman got 12 first place votes. I mean, he could have won.
Yeah, that's true.
Really weird.
That is weird. Hanley Ramirez won the NL Rookie of the Year. I know we're going way too far afield here that year. That guy was so good for a few years, and then he ended his career with the Guardians, a shell of what he had been.
I remember he hit an upper deck shot at Target Field in Minnesota, and I thought, maybe he still got something left. And then I think he was cut like a week later.
Yeah, and that was it. Never to be seen from again. Sorry if we didn't get to all your comments. We appreciate you all watching today. We'll be back on Friday at 9 a.m. Until then, we'll see you next time on the Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show.